Round 8 of the 2022 Honda British Talent Cup saw Evan Belford starting on pole position, but immediately the lightweight Johnny Garness managed to get the advantage as they headed down towards Riches for the first time. And then you saw lots of riders fighting in and amongst the mix, including Rhys Stevenson, who really put the bit between his teeth and managed to get the better of Johnny Garness on a few occasions. We saw a couple of riders going down. That was the number 67 of George Bowles, sadly crashing out of the race at the final corner. Evan Belford was deemed to jump the start, picked up one ride-through penalty for that, but then sped in the pit lane and sadly had another. A big shame for Evan Belford and very detrimental for his race results. Likewise for this man, Carter Brown, the only man who could have stopped Johnny Garness from taking the championship, retiring with a technical problem. It allowed Johnny Garness to take the win from Rhys Stevenson and indeed the 2022 Honda British Talent Cup Championship with it. What a season it has been from Johnny Garness. The pressure is finally off for him in 2022 as we get ready to go for the second race of the weekend here at Snetterton. Riders then lined up on the grid. The sunshine is out. We've had very mixed weather conditions here so far. However, it is now sunny after a bit of fog this morning, delayed proceedings. But the track is going to be relatively green out there for the riders. And here is how the first two rows line up in reverse order. It's Ryan Hitchcock who starts on the outside of the second row, finished in 6th in the first race. Daniel Goodman in the MLAV Vision Track Academy lines up alongside him. So all of the results for the first race, it's deemed on the fastest laps essentially, and that is how it is decided. So Harrison Crosby got the 4th fastest lap in the race, and he lines up at the head of the second row for the Banks Racing team. First row of the grid is Evan Belford. Redemption day for him then after an absolute shocker here at Snetterton yesterday. And then it is the newly crowned 2022 Honda British Talent Cup champion, Johnny Garness, who lines up second on the grid. Can he manage to take another victory this year? And can he do the double, crucially, at Snetterton as well? Well, I'll have to try and overhaul this man. The Lincolnshire-based rider, Rhys Stevenson, qualifies on pole position then after setting the fastest lap in yesterday's race one. Impressive performance it was from him. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what is going to happen for these riders. I'm Tom Brooks, alongside me, Taylor McKenzie here to guide you through the action. Taylor, we saw a brilliant race, great battle with Rhys Stevenson and Johnny Garness yesterday. Yeah,
it was obviously a very challenging race for Johnny with the championship on the line yesterday, but did an amazing job to clinch that. He's actually got a bike being wheeled off.
That's Holly Harris, I believe, on the FHO racing machine, so she's pulling off the grid at the start of the formation lap. That's a big shame there for Harris because it's her first season in the Honda British Talent Cup, and it's a good opportunity for her to get some more mileage under her belt, but clearly a technical issue, meaning that she will not be able to make the start of this race as the riders now start their warm-up lap then. So Dan Goodman starts from the second row of the grid, managed to get the 5th fastest time in that first race here yesterday. Interesting to see what we're going to be able to see from Dan Goodman because he's not been featuring up the sharper end of the year so far.
Yeah, he's made a lot of good progress this weekend, and it's the good thing with this championship. We talked about it yesterday, but these bikes are all quite similar, and it does mean that quickly, if riders can get to grips with it, they move their way up quite quickly because there's no difference in people's bikes really, so no one's at a distinct advantage, and when they do figure it out, they move up quite fast.
Well, here are the point standings after 15 races in 2022. Johnny Garness, nobody can catch him now. 119 points he has over Carter Brown. There's still a great battle going on though for third in the championship, and also second as well there with Carter Brown. That DNF yesterday putting him a little bit on the back foot, and Rhys Stevenson, Harrison Crosby, Keanu Via, Harrison Desoy, all relatively within touching distance. A few races before the end of the season will give them an opportunity to try and close up that gap as well. Evan Belford down there in 12th, no points on the board for him. Sorry, I should say he managed to recover to 12th place actually in race one yesterday, so he was able to get some points on the board, but still he's got a lot of work to do down there from 12th place. He of course missed a couple of rounds due to a broken leg in free practice at Silverstone. But here is how the grid lines up for race 2 of the Honda British Talent Cup. Rhys Stevenson, Johnny Garness, Evan Belford is your front row, Harrison Crosby, Dan Goodman and Ryan Hitchcock on row 2. Philippe Suruak, Lucas Brown and Bailey Stewart Campbell are on row 3. Row 4, Harley McCabe, Sullivan Mounsey and Harrison Desoy. Further down the grid, Ollie Walker, Josh Bannister and Harrison McKay. Then Carter Brown, Edmonds and Hopkins down there on row 6. Julian Correa, Cook and Huntingford on row 7. Willis, Rowan and Davidson on row 8. Row 9, Wilkinson, Johnson and Jeffrey on the number 21 down there in 27th on the grid. Then Harris, Horner and Hill. Holly Harris sadly will not be making the grid. We saw her pulling off at the start with what looks to be a technical issue. And it will be George Bowes who starts at the back of the grid, of course, following that crash he had yesterday. Wasn't quite able to get a quick lap time in, so a lot of work for the number 67 on the Microlis Cresswell racing machine to do. Rhys Stevenson makes his way then onto the grid with Johnny Garness for company alongside. Rhys Stevenson has been the bridesmaid so much this year, Taylor, hasn't managed to take a win. Can he do it in this one?
Yeah, a few races now he's followed Johnny round, had looked to have the pace to be able to do something, but Johnny in the last few laps yesterday was breaking the lap record at the front. Rhys was matching his lap times but wasn't able to make a pass on him, so he's going to have to try and change his tactic a little bit if he wants to find the win one. But yeah, the two of them over the last few races have looked like the class of the field.
Bit of a problem there for one of the riders getting in position. That's Carter Brown by the looks of things. Sorry, no, it's not Carter Brown. I should say that's the number 79 of Holly McCabe, who's had an issue on the grid. Good to see Holly Harris will be starting the race from the pit lane. We saw that just a few moments ago, but sadly Holly McCabe's race goes no further than the starting grid. Green flag then is waved at the back. Race 2 of the 2022 Honda British Talent Cup then. Eyes on the light, red lights on. Lights out, good start from Garness. Not such a great one though from Rhys Stevenson. He immediately gets overhauled by the number 57 as they head down towards the first corner for the first time. Keep an eye out for Evan Belford on the 52s, managed to get the better of Rhys Stevenson. They all pile their way through Riches for the first time into the heavy braking zone of Wilson's. That's where we'll see riders diving up the inside, and indeed we do. Rhys Stevenson late on the brakes, pushing on the front end and through into second, and 2-3 riders caught up in a big incident down there at Wilson's. One of the Vision MLAV Academy bikes there caught up.
Yeah, that looked like Carter Brown. He had to start all the way down in 16th place after yesterday, and unfortunately it looked like he was up the inside and apologising. I think he just got in a little bit hot and had nowhere to go. So
easy to do when you're riding in such a close pack like that, so a shame there for Carter Brown. It's been a weekend to forget for him.
Yeah, he's had a disastrous last few races. Early on in the season showed great potential, and yeah, unfortunately some technical problems and crashes, and yeah, not the end to this season that he would have wanted.
No, absolutely not. One of the other riders there, another Microlis Cresswell racing machine. So let's have a look and see what happened here. Talk us through it, Taylor.
So if you just look up the inside there, Carter just wasn't going to stop, quite simply, and it's a difficult corner because it's the first lap of the race. It's there's Sullivan Mounty, yes, one of the riders.
Harrison Desoy and Sullivan Mounty, the other two riders who were caught up in that.
Yeah, it's very easily done. Everyone's bunching up as they go in there. It's a bit of a bottleneck and there's nowhere to go. And if you do end up the inside and you don't feel like you're stopping, all of a sudden it just looks like there's a wall of riders that you end up collecting.
Well, despite a strong start, Evan Belford's dropped back into 4th place. He's got Philip Suruak close behind him, the number 75 for company. Johnny Garness versus Rhys Stevenson is the picture at the front of the race. Then it is Harrison Crosby on the number 15 with Belford, then Suruak, then Lucas Brown, very close for company. And then it's Daniel Goodman, who started on the second row of the grid, who's not too far adrift. Keep an eye out here for the number 29 of Lucas Brown on the black machine. In the slipstream, of course, these are very lightweight bikes, so rider weight can be very important. We've seen that with Johnny Garness. He's an absolutely pint-sized rider, and he really does have good straight-line speed. But Rhys Stevenson getting great drive, great slipstream, and goes through into the race lead at Riches.
Yeah, after making the start and jumping away at the front, Rhys quickly got back on Johnny Garness. So that's I really thought with Johnny having a gap at the front, he might be able to just break away straight away, but he's done well to get straight back on him.
Well, this was the story we saw yesterday, wasn't it, between Garness and Stevenson, and Garness managing to get the better of Stevenson into the very next corner, so it's going to be a top two scrap. The thing is, they've got to be a little bit careful here, because Harrison Crosby, Evan Belford et al. Are not too far adrift. If they get involved in their own battle, it's just going to drop them right back into that pack.
Yeah, but yesterday they didn't really do much passing. There was only a couple of passes, and they sort of were able to break away because they were going so fast at the front, so they do have to be careful. Messing each other up will let those riders behind close the gap.
So through into the left hand, going to flick it right before we head on to the back straight. You can see him back shifting down the gearbox there for Johnny Garness. Really has ridden superbly over the course of 2022. And he's once again trying to assert his authority on this race as they head on to this back straight then here. So this is where Rhys Stevenson, of course, will have the advantage of the slipstream. The hole's being pushed in the air in front of him. And let's see whether he's going to be able to mount a challenge as we flick it through into the left hand of Brundle. So down the back straight we go. He's close, but the thing is, you've got to be so careful going into that left-hander because you flick it right on the brakes into the right-hander of Nelson's, and if you haven't got it right, you're going to take both of you out.
Yeah, we did see it yesterday. It's such a tricky corner because you're going so fast down that straight. It's very difficult to judge your braking in there, and I'm actually going to give Johnny Garness his first bit of criticism this year. I wish he would stop looking behind.
He did that a few times yesterday, didn't he?
I know, and if he just didn't do that, you could concentrate on getting away a little bit more. It's difficult when you're at the front of the race because you do want to know what's going on behind, but a lot of the time when you look behind, it actually lets the rider behind you know that you're thinking about them and not concentrating. So, yeah, I'll be having words with him after this. Now he's the champion, we can concentrate on making him the next step better.
Well, yeah, these eyes in the back of his head, does Johnny Garness, in order to be able to keep an eye on what's happening behind him. I suppose it's a compliment in some ways that he's been up the sharp end so much that he's been looking behind to see what's happening. And I have to say, Reece Stevenson has been riding so well this weekend. Great to see him up the sharp end. As I mentioned before we started this one, he's been the bridesmaid on so many occasions, has yet to take a win in 2022. The thing is as well, of course, with Carter Brown being in early retirement following that crash, it's hugely beneficial here for Reece Stevenson to get some points on the board because he can close that gap down to Brown in the championship.
Yeah, that's going to make that fight interesting going into the last few races, because at one point it looked like Carter and Johnny were the only two that were running away at the front, and now with that gap closing all the time with 2 DNFs now for Carter, it's a really good opportunity for Reece to get right in the mix for the second place in the championship.
A few positions changing a little bit further down. Ryan Hitchcock hasn't made a good start to this race, down in 11th place. You can see that on the left-hand side of your screen. He was on the second row of the grid and unfortunately has just gone backwards in the opening few laps, whether he was caught up in some incidents or, of course, the field being bunched up. When you just get shuffled out in pack racing like this, you don't just lose time, you lose 2, 3, 4 positions.
Yeah, and these races around here have become quite spread out, quite fast. The groups, we've had the faster riders at the front. I think because there was such limited dry track time, it's made the groups bigger, or the gaps between the groups bigger than they normally would be, because people are having a guess maybe with their bike settings where they would normally have more of an idea what they would be doing with them.
If you're Reece Stevenson here, you're just sitting there behind Johnny Garness. He's clearly got the pace to run with him. We saw that yesterday. We're seeing that today. Fastest lap, meanwhile, for Garness last time around. But do you think he's just going to be keeping a watching brief on it and just not making any sort of silly dives?
It's very difficult for him. Yesterday, we could see the same thing. He has the pace over the entire lap to stay with Johnny, but it's the last sector where Johnny's so strong, which makes it very difficult for Reece to make a pass. So then he loses it around the last sector and spends the rest of the lap trying to catch it back up again. So they just play a little bit of cat and mouse. Makes it difficult for him to make a pass, and it would make it difficult for him to win the race unless he can get past earlier in the lap. I can't see him being able to make a pass in the last sector.
It's been a good opening couple of laps for Harrison McKay, the rider from Lincoln. He's made a good few positions up from his starting place on the grid. Cross back to that thought in a few moments, because here comes Reece Stevenson dive bombing down the inside of Johnny Garness through into the race lead once again for the other Lincolnshire rider who is now at the sharp end of this race. But as I was saying there, good start to the race then for Harrison McKay on the number 61, has made his way up through into 8th place. He'll be pretty pleased with that forward progress. But we're seeing what we saw yesterday, the field being really spread out in the opening few laps and sort of splinter groups happening, and you can see that with this top 2 battle. They've clearly got a pace advantage over Harrison Crosby, and likewise Harrison's got a pace advantage over Evan Belford, because there's a sizable gap and Harrison's just sort of circulating in 3rd place all on his own.
Yeah, I was just trying to think what Reece's best plan here in this race is, and I think passing Johnny, like we see here, he's just slipped up the inside, is probably his best tactic, because the other races we've seen when Johnny's at the front, he's so fast and consistent and doesn't make any mistakes. He can reel the laps off one after the other and just gets faster and faster. But by doing this, breaking Johnny's rhythm a little bit, it might just give him the bit that he's looking for.
Well, down the back straight we come with the top 2 once again. It is now Garness ahead of Stevenson. In the gap between themselves and 3rd place, of course, it is now up to 2.6 seconds between themselves and Harrison Crosby as they continue on. So we're already getting towards the halfway stage in this Honda British Talent Cup race at Snetterton. And these top 2 have been riding so well over the course of this season. Big wobble there on the front end. The thing is with these bikes, it's all about momentum, isn't it, being 250s. They haven't got the power, and you need to carry that momentum through the corners.
Yeah, exactly. These bikes, they carry really high corner speed. Some of the corners, they'll actually be going faster than superbikes, believe it or not. And it really is about keeping your momentum going. You don't want to slow the bike down too much, because if you slow it down, when you do accelerate, they don't have the punch out of the corners, so they try and carry real high corner speed, big wide sweeping lines, and a track like this is great for them because there's so many fast open flowing corners. Really good fun to ride.
Lap record getting smashed by Stevenson last time around. This is a battle a little bit further down inside the top 5. Philip Suruak with Lucas Brown and Daniel Goodman for company. Here comes the number 29 up the inside. Lucas Brown makes his move on the number 75 of Suruak then. So he is ahead, but momentarily, because you can guarantee that the rider is going to challenge for position, and indeed he does into the next corner. So Philip is now ahead. This is a good little scrap sort of going on inside the top 5. Lots of points positions on offer for them. And good to see Daniel Goodman actually fighting up the sharper end of the field as well. He's down in 22nd in the championship and had something of a sporadic year in terms of scoring points. But he seems to be having what it takes to keep the pace with these guys up inside the top 5.
Yeah, he's proven it here, qualifying 5th and sticking with this bunch here. It's good to see such good improvement during this season from him.
Yeah, he's having a really good race. Here's Daniel Goodman there on the number 71. Just see 3rd in your picture as we come through on to the back straight. Cross back to that lead battle. Reece Stevenson, quickest man last time around, obliterating the lap record down to 2:02.705. And we were talking yesterday, actually, in the first race, Taylor, about how quick these riders are going this year. The pace has just been amazing.
Yeah, yesterday they were able to break the lap record in pretty much their first dry session of the weekend, and now they're nearly a second or over a second under the lap record, and they've been doing that consistently over the last few races. It's really showing, I think, by having Reece here, it's pushing Johnny all the way. Some races where Johnny's been able to break away at the front, he hasn't had the need to push so hard. But it's good, it's both the riders pushing each other on. You can see at the start of the year, these races, there were sort of 10, 12 people in the front group, and over the last few, it's just been sort of Johnny and a couple others at the most. So it's really showing how much they've improved over the season and how fast they're going now.
Well, I was talking about the splinter group, and you can see that here, this 3-way battle possibly set to become a 7-way battle with 4 riders very close behind Suruak, Goodman and Lucas Brown, who are circulating in 5th, 6th and 7th at the moment. Oh, Stevenson's gone down. Reece Stevenson's dropped the front at Wilson's, and that's a massive shame. He can't remount, of course, and from fighting for the race lead, he's clearly had an incident there at the hairpin, and unfortunately his race, such promise for him, is going to come to absolutely zero here. Let's have a look and see what happened. I think it's going to be a classic front ender here.
Oh, it's just Johnny broken away a tiny bit. It's gone in with a little bit too much front brake. Very easily done. It's a very tight corner. The previous lap, I was just about to say that both riders were 1.6 seconds under the lap record, and very cleverly from Johnny, he's been able to put the pressure on from the front and dragging Reece round with him. Reece is obviously pushing hard, and he's forced him into making a mistake. A real shame for the race now, because Johnny's just going to be away at the front on his own, and I was looking forward to seeing if Reece could have done something in the closing stages.
Yeah, it is a shame in terms of the racing action. Johnny Garnes now with a comfortable buffer over Harrison Crosby, who's elevated up into 2nd. So that battle as well, a little bit further down. Evan Belford sits in 3rd place, but now it becomes a battle instead of 5th for 4th with Suruak, Lucas Brown, Goodman, etc. And this is that group of riders. Suruak just leading that charge at the moment. You can see the live point standings, and Johnny Garnes, of course, would be extending that championship challenge. He, of course, cannot be caught by any of the riders. He was declared the champion yesterday after an almighty victory and a brilliant season in 2022 as well. And now all he's got to do is keep it on the straight and narrow. I have to say, though, I was wondering about it. When you're racing in close competition, does it make it harder when you've got a rider that you're battling with and then suddenly that reference point isn't there anymore?
Yeah, it's easy to lose concentration at that point because you're so focused when you have other riders around you. Normally, rides like this, where you're in the middle of a bunch, these races go really, really fast because all you're thinking about is the other riders around you. When you're at the front on your own, you have a lot more time to think, and it's harder to keep your concentration because it's just you versus the track. So it's a different challenge when you haven't got someone around you. We'll see here well, if you just look at that last lap alone, Johnny's dropped his lap times by 1.5 seconds nearly on one lap. So it does make a difference not having that pressure behind you. Having said that, that lap still is the fastest lap of the race. On that lap, he's still lapping faster than the people behind, so he perhaps doesn't need to push that much. But yeah, it definitely changes it.
Tear off there for Lucas Brown, cost him his position to Harrison McKay. Harrison's had a brilliant race so far, making his way up from the lower echelons of the grid, up inside this battle for 4th place. And he's now right involved in the mix. He was the blue and white machine that was circulating with the number 61 on the front. So keep a keen eye out and see what Harrison is going to be able to do. But a 5-way scrap for 4th position is going to be a really exciting way to bring this race to its conclusion. We're coming in towards the sort of business end of it now. Lap 7 out of 10 we are on. And if you're riding in a pack like this here, Taylor, what are you thinking about if you're the riders that are following rather than leading the charge?
I'd like to think that they were formulating a plan, but being young, keen racers, I think they're just sort of thinking about the very next corner and where they're going to pass that person. You do want to try and circulate as much as you can towards the front of the bunch. If you're at the back, it's easy to get shuffled backwards further, and if something happens in the group and there's a mistake or a rider crashes, it quite easily splits the group. So it's always better, obviously, to try and be towards the front. But you're always thinking, you're trying to formulate a plan how you're going to pan this out, because if it stays in a bunch till the end, perhaps you don't want to be leading going on to the last lap because it's easy to get swallowed up. But Dan Goodman's forced his way to the front now and having an amazing ride in 4th position now.
Big shout out to Ronnie Harris, by the way. He's making his wildcard debut here this weekend. He's managed to get himself up into 20th from not a particularly brilliant starting position in this race. Started down in 28th, has made 8 places up in this one. And considering it's his first weekend and given the level of the riding that we are seeing in this year, it is brilliant to see him, and also brilliant to see this man, Evan Belford, fighting at the sharp end. He's managed to get the better of Harrison Crosby. Over the last couple of laps, his times have come down and down and down, as has the gap between himself and Crosby, and Belford now through into 2nd.
Yeah, very impressive. Obviously a little bit easier for him today, having not to do 2 right-through penalties that he had yesterday after jumping the start. So much better race for him. It's a real shame that we didn't get to see him at the start of this season. He perhaps could have been fighting for this championship or towards the front of this championship, but showing great speed over the last few races and doing an excellent job.
Yeah, it has been a mixed bag of a season for Evan Belford. At the start of the season, he got a broken leg in practice, and unfortunately after that he's really been on the back foot. Sits down in 12th in the standings coming into this one. Did manage to take a win back at race 1 at Knockhill, and has had a couple of podiums since then as well. And another podium to add to his form book this year will be something to smile about there for Evan. Look over the shoulder, big long look over the shoulder there as he ducks down behind the slipstream, behind the screen I should say, with Harrison Crosby in the slipstream as they head down the Bentley Straight and in towards Brundles. Is Crosby going to think about a move? Well, he pulls out of the slipstream, but thinks better of it on this occasion. Sensible riding there from Harrison Crosby. Through into the bomb hole we go. Nose to tail running here in this battle for 2nd place. Evan Belford, you wonder if he's just going to be able to try and build out a bit of a gap here to Harrison Crosby. If he can just sort of run his own pace for the next couple of laps or so, if he's just going to bring himself out of that immediate scrap for 2nd.
Yeah, the last lap he lapped 1.1 seconds faster than Crosby. Whether that was just an off lap, because their fastest lap of the race is within 0.1 of each other. So this lap we'll see now whether Crosby can respond, if he can hang on to the back, because Belford will be doing everything he can to push to get away from him.
We talk about the slipstream a lot. Of course, it's very prominent here at Snetterton with 2 very long straights. But obviously, it's magnified here on these Honda NSR 250s. Just how important is having a slipstream for that top speed?
Yeah, when you've got less power, it makes much more difference. And we see it a lot with some of these bigger riders. It's harder for them to be aerodynamic. We've had a fall up.
Yeah, that's the 65 of Alexander Rowan, the rider from Dramara, who has gone down. Thankfully up and okay. The marshal's attending to him, so not entirely sure what happened there, but otherwise a sad end to his race with just a couple of laps to go.
Johnny Garness is still safe here, but they are actually closing him in the last few laps. They're in the same camera shot now. He's still got a big lead. I'm sure they're not going to catch him, but with only a lap to go.
Do you think he's just backing off the pace? He knows he's got a comfortable margin now and is just trying to not push too hard?
Exactly that. He's got a very comfortable lead, and even when he's just riding around like this, going 2 seconds slower, he's still lapping just as fast. So it's it's a difficult thing, because you only need to be the first bike over the line. You don't need to win it by 9 seconds, but also it was nice to see him pushing on. Broke the lap record earlier in the race and proved that he can do it if he needs to.
Well, we're talking about Garness and his big looks over the shoulder. I think Evan Belford needs to take a leap out of that book as well, because he had a big look over the shoulder, and he has now got Harrison Crosby going up his inside into Brundles and then into Nelson, so back through into 2nd. This battle for this 2nd place podium finish, 2nd and 3rd with these 2 riders, is certainly not over, and we're coming towards the start of the final lap. So I reckon we're going to start seeing these guys getting their elbows out.
much better lap from Crosby. He's gone green in that middle sector, really responded as he needed to, and putting the pressure back on now, getting back past him. We'll see what happens in this final lap.
So on to the start of the final lap we go then. Johnny Garness leads the field by 5.2 seconds. This battle still continues on as we come across the timing line. So Harrison Crosby versus Evan Belford in the battle for second in this race. It's Crosby on the inside, Belford on the outside. Who's going to be last of the late breakers? Crosby manages to get the move done, but does he run it a bit wide and allow an opportunity here for Belford to try and retaliate on the run down in towards Wilson's? He's certainly pulling alongside. Can he outbreak the number 15? Yes, he can, and he goes back through into second. So that was a really good couple of corners there for Belford. Just decided to let Harrison through and then thought, do you know what, I'll take him at the next one.
Yeah, he's obviously confident on this last lap. He needs to push now to try and get away, so he can't get in the slipstream on down the back straight. As he ran a little bit wide there, he's let him get alongside him again.
On the run down into Agostini's, we're still side by side then. Crosby on the inside, but I think Belford's got track position. He does. So I wonder whether Crosby's just going to be setting this up for that run into Brundles and into Nelson's. We saw him do it on the last lap.
I think he is. He looked like he could have made a move then if he wanted to, but he sort of backed out. So really now it's going to come through this left-hander into a tight right, and then it builds all the way onto the back straight. So Evan's got to do everything he can to get a good run out of here so it doesn't give him the opportunity to slipstream him. But Crosby will be thinking about getting a run through here. You'll see now he'll line it up. Well, he's actually got a little bit of a gap, so he's going to struggle to get a decent slipstream from there, but probably just about can.
Yeah, it was quite a brilliant couple of corners there for Evan Belford, just managing to put enough daylight between himself and Harrison Crosby as we come down the back straight into Brundles for the final time. No way through there for Crosby, really pushing on that front end. He's going to have to try it, and a dive up the inside into Murray's. That'll be the next opportunity as we go through into the bomb hole then. So lap 10 out of 10, 2 corners remaining in this battle for second. Johnny Garness is some 5.8 seconds up the road. Evan Belford runs it a bit wide into Coram, and that's going to allow Harrison Crosby to go back through. So Crosby through into second place. Can Belford try and retaliate and do something into the final corner? No. So it's going to be a drag to the line as Johnny Garness comes across the line to take his 12th win of 2022, and it is a drag to the line then for second place. Crosby versus Belford, and Belford takes it by a whisker from Harrison Crosby. What a brilliant finish to that race. Philip Suruak is going to finish ahead of the 71 of Dan Goodman, having his best race so far of the season down there in 5th place. Then comes Harrison McKay, and then Ryan Hitchcock, Lucas Brown and Ollie Walker making really good progress inside the top 10 to join that battle right towards the end of it. Bailey Stewart-Campbell does bookend that top 10. It's not over further down as well between Edmonds and Hopkins, and Edmonds getting the better of Hopkins there by 6,000ths of a second to the timing line. What a race though for Johnny Garness, his 12th victory of 2022. Another incredibly strong performance, and it is now yet another double in his copybook as well. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 doubles on the bounce that he has had. Just an amazing performance from him. The thing is, for Johnny, what's next in 2023? Where does he go from here? Putting you on the spot, Taylor, sorry.
Yeah, we will wait and see, Tom. We will wait and see. I couldn't think of an answer quick enough.
We've all been there, don't worry. What a ride from Johnny Garness from Ilfracombe in Devon. Let's have a look then, shall we, at the final results from race 2 here at Snetterton. Johnny Garness wins it by 6.3 seconds from Evan Belford. Harrison Crosby completing the podium in that drag to the line. Philip Suruak completes 4th place with Dan Goodman inside the top 5, ahead of Harrison McKay, Ryan Hitchcock, Lucas Brown and Ollie Walker, all involved in that squabble. Then it is Bailey Stewart-Campbell inside the top 10, ahead of Clayton Edmonds. Good ride from him on the 64, ahead of Luca Hopkins. Then Josh Bannister, Julian Correa and James Cook completing the points standings. Just outside of it there was Charlie Huntingford and Peter Willis, those 2 riders, as well as Ted Wilkinson actually, all very close to that final points paying position. And the standings then after 16 races in 2022. Johnny Garnes, as we know, of course, is the champion. In the battle, though, for second, Carter Brown, of course, a DNF for him. Reece Stevenson does not score any points, and that allows Harrison Crosby to level with him for third in the championship. So big news there for Harrison Crosby. Can he sneak a top 3 finish in the standings before the conclusion of the season? Good points for Lucas Brown and Ryan Hitchcock in 7th and 8th place, as well as Evan Belford down there in 10th position. A nice podium finish for him, his second of the season. He'll be pretty pleased with that. Bailey Stewart-Campbell tied on points with Clayton Edmonds for 13th position. Sadly, a non-score for Sullivan Mounsey being caught up in that first lap drama. Well, Johnny Garnes is down there on the grid, along with Evan Belford and Harrison Crosby as well. What a fantastic race. What a ride that was from Johnny Garnes. Reece Stevenson unfortunately crashing out in that battle for the race lead, and a huge shame because they were having such a fight with one another. Good for Johnny Garnes, though. He's down there on the grid. Just needs a glass of water, and after that one, because it's not particularly warm here at Snetterton, very physical riding motorcycles. And once again, a brilliant race here for the 2022 Honda British Talent Cup. Let's head down, though, to the grid and chat with our race winner, Johnny Garnes.
Johnny, another amazing victory. You've had a fantastic season, another lap record for you there. Talk me through that race.
Yeah, it was an amazing race. Unfortunately, Reece crashed, but me and Reece pulled away again, as usual, but unfortunately he crashed in turn 2 because I kept on going wide, and I thought when I went wide he would overtake me, and I looked behind me and he was just sliding through the gravel. But yeah, a bit unfortunate for him, and then I had a steady gap and lead. I just held it the whole race, but I tried to split a wheelie at the last corner, but I was panicking a bit because it was only 4 seconds behind me, Evan and Harrison. But yeah, I'm just happy with this, coming home with, well, I don't really need more points to win the championship, but yeah, coming home with a big smile.
Very well done. It's good to see that the biggest problems you got are pulling wheelies. I think you've had an amazing season, and I'm looking forward to seeing your championship celebration soon.
Yeah, thank you. There should be a big one at Donington, but before we end it, I'd like to have a massive thank you to Simon Marsh, Vision Track, MLAV Academy, Somni, DAO Racing, especially a massive thank you to Dunlop, because the amount of tyres they've given me from the prize, and yeah, it's just couldn't really do this without Dunlop and LS2 and RNG, but yeah, just massive thank you to everyone out there.
Well done, Johnny.
Thank you.
Win number 12 of the season for Johnny Garnes. And yet another winner's trophy to add to the cabinet. He'll need to get himself down to IKEA after this one to make sure he's got room for them all. Just being interviewed down there on the grid is Harrison Crosby after his 3rd place finish. There is Evan Belford. Redemption for him after 2 ride-through penalties and a recovery to 12th place after a jump start in that race yesterday. And what a ride it was from Johnny Garnes. He'll be mightily pleased with that. And the question remains of where is he going to go in 2023? Where will we see Johnny Garnes popping up in the future? Because surely this is the start of a very long and illustrious motorcycle racing career for the youngster from Devon. So the highlights then of the second race of the weekend for the Honda British Talent Cup saw Reece Stevenson on pole position, but Johnny Garnes got an absolute stonker away from the lights down towards the first corner. Evan Belford also away pretty well. And then there was drama at Wilson's. Carter Brown involved in an incident, taking out 2 other riders. All 3 of them, of course, out of the race on the spot. Then it was Reece Stevenson versus Johnny Garnes for the race lead. Reece Stevenson had a great run here yesterday and was keeping Garnes honest throughout the majority of it, up until this point when he crashed out of the contention for the race lead. A big shame there for the rider from Lincoln. It became a 2nd place squabble between Harrison Crosby and Evan Belford, and that went down right to the checkered flag. Johnny Garnes took his 12th win of the season. It was a drag to the line between Belford and Crosby, and Belford was the rider who emerged on top ahead of Crosby.
Thank you.